You know what's funny about people who spend all their time working on themselves? They become absolutely unbearable to be around. I'm talking about the ones who meditate every morning, journal every night, go to therapy twice a week, and somehow find a way to mention all of it in every single conversation you have with them. And here's the thing. Nobody wants to say out loud. Self-awareness has turned into the ultimate excuse for being a judgmental asshole. Think about it. When's the last time someone told you they were on a self-improvement journey without also implying that you should be too? I spent 3 years deep in the self-help world, read all the books, followed all the gurus, did the morning routines. And you know what happened? I became the most insufferable version of myself. Because here's what they don't tell you about self-awareness. It can very easily become a weapon you use against other people. Let me paint you a picture. You're at dinner with friends. Someone's venting about their job. They hate their boss, the pay sucks, they're miserable, normal stuff. And then that one friend jumps in. You know the one. They tilt their head slightly, give this knowing smile, and say something like, "Have you considered that maybe you're attracting this negativity because of your mindset?" Boom. Conversation over. Everyone feels uncomfortable. And that friend, they feel enlightened. This is what I call performative self-awareness. It's self-awareness that exists purely so other people can see it. It's not about actually growing as a person. It's about making sure everyone knows you're growing. And social media has made this 10 times worse. Everyone's posting their breakthrough moments, their therapy wins, their shadow work revelations. But here's the dirty secret. Most of these people aren't actually doing the work. They're just learning the language. They learn words like triggered and boundaries and toxic. And suddenly they've got a diagnosis for everyone else's behavior. Meanwhile, their own behavior? That's justified. That's them being authentic. That's them honoring their truth. I had a friend who became obsessed with attachment theory, took one online quiz, decided she was anxious avoidant, and suddenly everyone in her life was being analyzed. Her boyfriend didn't text back fast enough. He's avoidant and emotionally unavailable. Her mom asked about her day, enmeshment, and codependency. She wasn't using self-awareness to understand herself better. She was using it to avoid taking responsibility for anything. And that's the trap. Real self-awareness is supposed to make you more humble. It's supposed to show you all the ways you mess up, all your blind spots, all your contradictions. But fake self-awareness does the opposite. It makes you feel superior. Because now you can see what everyone else is doing wrong. I remember the exact moment I realized I'd become this person. I was at a family gathering. My cousin was talking about how stressed she was with work and kids. And I actually said to her, "You know, stress is just a story we tell ourselves. Have you tried reframing your narrative?" The look she gave me, I can still see it. It wasn't gratitude, it wasn't curiosity, it was pure annoyance. Because I wasn't trying to help her. I was trying to show her that I was more evolved than she was. That's when it hit me. All this self-work I'd been doing had just given me a more sophisticated way to judge people. I wasn't more compassionate. I wasn't more understanding. I was just more convinced that my way of seeing things was the right way. And the self-help industry loves this. They need you to feel like you're ahead of everyone else. Because if you're ahead, you'll keep buying the next course, the next book, the next retreat. They sell you this idea that awareness equals superiority. That if you can name your emotions, identify your patterns, understand your trauma, then you're somehow better than people who can't. But here's what real self-awareness looks like. It's realizing you're still a mess. You're just a mess who knows why. It's not about being better than anyone. It's about being honest about how much you still suck. I know a guy who's been in therapy for 10 years. And you know what he says about it? He says therapy taught him that he'll probably always be a little bit selfish, a little bit defensive, a little bit insecure. The difference now is that he catches himself. He apologizes. He tries to do better next time. He doesn't go around telling everyone else to go to therapy. He doesn't analyze his friends. He doesn't post about his breakthroughs online. That's real self-awareness. It's quiet. It's uncomfortable. And it doesn't make you feel superior to anyone. But fake self-awareness? That's loud. That's confident. That's always ready to tell you what you're doing wrong. And the worst part is that it comes from a good place, usually. Most people who do this genuinely think they're helping. They read something that changed their life, and they want to share it. They learned something about themselves, and they think it applies to everyone. But what they don't realize is that unsolicited awareness is just criticism with better vocabulary. Telling someone they need to work on their boundaries is just a nice way of saying they're a pushover. Telling someone they're being triggered is just a nice way of saying they're overreacting. Telling someone they need to do shadow work is just a nice way of saying they're in denial. Same judgment. Nicer words. I see this all the time in online spaces. Someone posts about a struggle they're having. Within minutes, dozens of people are in the comments diagnosing them. You're probably dealing with childhood trauma. Sounds like you have an anxious attachment style. Have you looked into your Enneagram type? This screams unresolved father wounds. And maybe some of that is true. But maybe the person just wanted to vent. Maybe they just wanted someone to say, "That sucks," instead of turning their pain into a case study. Because here's the thing about self-awareness. It's personal. What works for you might not work for someone else. Your breakthrough moment might be someone else's Tuesday. Your life-changing realization might be completely irrelevant to their situation. But when you're convinced that you've figured something out, it's really hard not to assume everyone else needs to figure it out too. I used to think that if I could just explain things the right way, everyone would see what I was seeing. If I could just share the right article, recommend the right book, use the right analogy, they'd get it. But that's not how people work. You can't think your way into someone else's growth. And trying to force it just makes you annoying. Or worse, it makes you harmful. Because sometimes people aren't ready. Sometimes they need to stay where they are for a little while longer. Sometimes the lesson they need to learn isn't the one you want to teach them. Real support looks like letting people figure things out at their own pace, even when it's frustrating to watch, even when you can see exactly what they need to do. But fake self-awareness can't handle that. It needs to fix. It needs to correct. It needs to guide. And it disguises all of that as caring, as wanting the best for someone, as just trying to help. But if you really pay attention, underneath all that helping is a need to be right, a need to be the one who knows better. That's the moral superiority part, and it's sneaky because it doesn't feel like superiority when you're doing it. It feels like care. It feels like wisdom. It feels like you're being a good friend by sharing what you've learned. But to the person on the receiving end, it often just feels like judgment. I had to learn this the hard way. I lost friendships because I couldn't stop trying to fix people, couldn't stop pointing out their patterns, couldn't stop suggesting books and podcasts and therapists, and I told myself I was just being helpful, just sharing what worked for me, just caring about their growth. But the truth is, I was making their problems about me, about what I knew, about how I could solve it. That's not support, that's ego. Real self-awareness would have helped me see that, would have helped me recognize when I was overstepping, when I was projecting, when I was making someone else's journey about validating my own. But I was too busy being aware of everyone else's stuff to notice my own. And that's the biggest irony of all. The people who talk the most about self-awareness are often the least aware of how they're actually showing up. They can tell you all about their inner child and their shadow self and their core wounds. But they can't see that they just interrupted someone 3 times in a row. They know all their triggers, but they don't notice when they're triggering someone else. They've done all this work on themselves, but somehow they're still the most difficult person in the room. Because self-awareness, without humility, is just narcissism with a spiritual vocabulary. And humility is the part nobody wants to talk about. The part that doesn't get likes on Instagram, the part that doesn't make you feel enlightened. Humility is realizing that even after all the work you've done, you're still going to mess up. You're still going to hurt people. You're still going to fall back into old patterns. And that's okay. That's human. That's actually the whole point. Growth isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming honest. Honest about your limitations. Honest about your mistakes. Honest about the fact that you don't have it all figured out. And that honesty makes you easier to be around. Because you're not pretending anymore, you're not performing, you're not trying to prove anything. You're just a person, doing your best, trying to be a little better than you were yesterday. So, if you're on this self-awareness journey, and I really hope you are because it can be genuinely life-changing, Just watch out for the trap. Watch out for the moment when your awareness starts making you feel better than other people. Watch out for the urge to diagnose everyone around you. Watch out for using therapy speak as a way to win arguments or shut down conversations. And most importantly, watch out for the belief that because you've done the work, you're done. You're not done. None of us are done. That's the whole point. The real dark side of self-awareness isn't that it doesn't work. It's that it works just well enough to make you dangerous. It gives you just enough insight to feel superior, just enough language to sound wise, just enough understanding to judge others. But if you can get past that, if you can use self-awareness to become more humble instead of more arrogant, more curious instead of more certain, more compassionate instead of more critical, then it actually becomes the tool it's supposed to be. Not a weapon, not a performance, not a way to prove you're better than everyone else. Just a quiet, ongoing practice of trying to understand yourself so you can show up better for the people around you. And that version doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to be seen, it just is. If this hit home, maybe check out the next video.